Well, good Tuesday to everyone. Welcome back to Let's Discuss with John Barba. As always, thank you all for your feedback and your messages to me. Um, and I really can't stress this enough. This really is a place that I want to discuss topics. And I have one today that may or may not come off as political, but I think that it's it's really a good discussion topic, and I'd like to get everybody's feedback because I'd like to know where people stand on this. And that is simply, can it happen here? And what I mean is, as we continue to watch the newsreels every morning, boy, that shows my age, doesn't it? Newsreels. Um, as I continue to watch the news every morning, as you do, and we learn more and more about um, the way that the Hamas terrorists came into Israel and how they had planned it and you know the intricacies of their attack on Israel. It living in Texas and having this just absolute flood of illegal border crossing by millions, literally millions of people. It brings up the question, can it happen here? They have reported, the government has reported to us that there are actually several hundred people that they have apprehended that are on the um, watch list that are actually potential terrorists that we know about. But given the fact that there are so many gotaways, so many people that we have no idea that they've entered across the border, you know, one really has to ask the question, can it happen here? I mean, are there um, terrorists or agents for some of the many enemies that we have around the world? I mean, they don't have to be um, Muslim terrorists. They could be um, anti government terrorists from South America. They could be agents for um, the communist Chinese. They could be Russian agents. I growing up in the 70s and 80s, I remember very vividly all the conversations on the news about spies that were caught infiltrating some of our government agencies and people that we had caught uh, scouting out our infrastructure. Looking what keeps people from coming across the border today, scouting out our electric grid or our water supply and looking for ways to compromise that. I mean, it doesn't have to be some group of people in hang gliders coming across the Red River and attacking the United States. Could very easily be people that infiltrate into our essential services, and they would cause massive disruption um, in the U.S. economy, in our lives. And so I ask you this, and I really want your feedback. Am I alone in being concerned about the fact that these kind of things can happen here? I mean, before 9/11, we said that couldn't happen. And then 9/11 happened, right? And that's back when we actually controlled the border. That's when we actually gave a damn who was entering into our country. Nowadays, our government simply doesn't care about protecting U.S. citizens. And so I have a real concern, a real serious concern about what could possibly happen here in the U.S. Just this last week, they caught, um, well, actually, I've heard a couple of reports, but I've seen on multiple news networks that there were at least two Iranian and one Egyptian caught coming across the border. They were in their 20s, and as of yet, there's been no follow up about whether or not they've been able to prove anything as to the intent of these individuals coming across the border. There were some other news reports that there were an additional two Middle Eastern individuals. All of these people were on the terrorist watch list, to my understanding. And, you know, it doesn't take that much for um, some of these people to orchestrate some really bad things. Um, they could hit a railway crossing or a major rail line. They could hit an airport, air traffic control. There's so many things that just a few people could do that would create a lot of havoc. And I think something that bothers me even more about this as a possibility today, beyond the fact that our borders are not protected, but again, growing up in the 70s and 80s, um, there was a lot more freedom for people to have guns for self-defense. Being in Texas, we still have the ability to protect ourselves. Um, but there are a lot of states where there are no gun rights or there are very few gun rights. I mean, I feel bad for the people in California. They can't protect themselves. The West Coast can't protect themselves. There are a lot of other states, Illinois and others where a law-abiding citizen, it's really hard to have a gun to protect themselves. And this isn't a gun rights discussion, but it is um, you know, do we think these kind of things can happen here? I mean, back during World War II, one of the reasons that the Japanese never attacked the west coast of the United States was because they knew that it would have been an impossible endeavor simply because they knew that, unlike their own citizens, that most of the U.S. population, especially on the West Coast at that time, was armed. I mean, we had hunting rifles, we had handguns, we the military might not have been able to respond fast enough to a um, an attack on our borders by the Japanese imperial forces or the Nazis for that matter. The military may not have been able to respond immediately, but the public would have. And the Japanese High Council knew that. And they knew that they would have very little chance of getting of establishing a bulkhead on our borders because there were just too many people that would fight them. And they could not bring enough troops across the Pacific. And so that's why they attacked us in Hawaii, the Philippines, Guam, the Aleutian Islands. but they did not hit the mainland U.S. Today, I'm not so sure. You know, I I would doubt very seriously they would make an incursion into Texas. I think that the civilians here in Texas can protect ourselves pretty well, but don't know about New Mexico, California. Worry a little bit about Arizona these days. Excuse me, fighting off a cold. But give me your feedback. Do you all think this could happen here? Maybe not exactly the same way that Hamas attacked Israel, but are we vulnerable? Is our infrastructure vulnerable to these illegal crossings? There are a few people that have brought it up in the news, but it's eerily silent that it has not been more prevalent in the discussions, especially since the Hamas attack on Israel. Um, and I want to know whether I'm alone. Am I alone in my concern or fear for this as a possibility? Do you share in that? Um, are you ready to do what you have to do to protect your family? We are here, but it'll take more than one household. And I would please give me your feedback. And even though this is not a wonderful, happy topic, as usual, I do hope you have a great week, a blessed day, and I look forward to getting your responses.